There are monsters in the Forgotten Realms that crawled from the depths of the abyss. There are horrors that slithered from the Far Realm. And then there's the Owlbear, a creature that had to be made, because no sane god would ever create something so perfectly, horrifyingly wrong. 8 feet of muscle, feathers, and fury with the disposition of a hangry grizzly and the hunting instincts of nature's most efficient predator. The Owlbear is what happens when a wizard gets curious, a god gets creative, or reality itself decides to have a really bad day. And somehow, against all logic, it works. This is the story of D&D's most beloved abomination, the creature that shouldn't exist but absolutely does, and will absolutely murder you for looking at it funny. The Owlbear occupies a unique space in D&D lore. Unlike most monsters that have been mythological origins or demonic ancestry, the Owlbear exists because someone or something looked at a bear, looked at an owl, and thought, you know what would make both of these creatures better? Combining them into a territorial nightmare that hunts with the stealth of an apex predator and the raw power to rip adventurers in half. The official answer to where did owlbears come from depends on which edition you're reading and which setting you're playing in. The beauty and the horror of the owlbear is that nearly every origin story acknowledges the same fundamental truth. This creature is unnatural, it was created, it was designed, and whoever did it probably regretted it immediately. The most commonly accepted origin across D&D editions is the classic Mad Wizard experiment gone wrong explanation, or perhaps gone right, depending on your definition of success. According to this theory, ancient wizards, those arrogant spellcasters who existed before terms like ethical review board or maybe we shouldn't, engaged in magical experimentation that would make modern arcanists blanch. These wizards practice a form of magic called fusion magic, or transmutation breeding, where they would magically combine 2 or more creatures to create entirely new species. The owlbear was one such creation. Some wizard, whose name has been mercifully lost to history, decided that the raw physical power of a bear combined with the keen senses and predatory instincts of a giant owl would create the perfect guardian beast. They weren't wrong. The owlbear makes an incredible guardian. The problem is that it makes an equally incredible disaster when it inevitably escapes, breeds, and populates the wilderness. The wizard who created the first owlbear likely had noble intentions. Perhaps they wanted a creature to guard their tower. Perhaps they sought to create a new species that could help protect civilization from darker threats. Perhaps they were just bored and had access to too much magical power and not enough common sense. What they got was a creature that possessed the size, strength, and territorial aggression of a full-grown bear, the night vision, hearing, and hunting instincts of an owl, the intelligence of, well, it's debatable, but definitely enough to hold grudges, an absolutely horrible temperament, the ability to breed true, meaning one wizard's mistake become every ranger's nightmare. Early owlbears likely escaped their creator's control quickly. Maybe the wizard underestimated how aggressive the hybrid would be. Maybe they didn't properly account for the creature's strength. Maybe the owlbear simply murdered its creator the first time someone forgot to feed it on schedule. Whatever the cause, owlbears escaped into the wild, where they did what any successful predator does. They found a niche, they adapted, and they multiplied. The wizard's creation became a self-perpetuating species, spreading across forests, mountains, and caves throughout the world. An alternative origin theory, popular among scholars who study the Feywild, suggests that owlbears weren't created by wizards at all. They were crafted by powerful Fey creatures as a joke, a weapon, or simply because Fey beings operate on a wavelength of logic that mortal minds struggle to comprehend. The Feywild is a realm where nature is more intensely natural, where emotions manifest physically, and where the laws of reality are more like polite suggestions. It's entirely plausible that an arch-fey looked at the material plane and thought, you know what would be funny? If bears could fly. Wait, no, if bears could almost fly but were too heavy, so they'd just be really angry about it. This theory has some merit. Owlbears display characteristics that seem almost deliberately designed to be contradictory. They have beaks, but they're not birds. They have feathers, but they can't fly. They have the build of an ambush predator, but the subtlety of an avalanche when they charge. They look like they should be slow, but they can outrun most humanoids. These contradictions feel very Fey in nature, taking familiar concepts and twisting them into something new and unsettling. The Fae are known for their love of irony and their tendency to create things that are beautiful, terrifying, and deeply impractical all at once. If the Fae did create Owlbears, they likely unleashed them into the material plane for reasons ranging from legitimate to, "we thought it would be entertaining." The Fae have been known to gift, or curse depending on your perspective, the mortal world with various creatures as parts of deals, pranks, or simply because they were bored. The fact that owlbears are found near areas with strong connections to Feywild lends some credence to this theory. There are documented cases of owlbears emerging from Fey crossings or appearing in forests after Fey revels. Whether this means the Fey created them or simply enjoy releasing them into the wild like particularly aggressive livestock is a matter of scholarly debate. A third theory, less commonly discussed but present in certain religious texts, suggests divine origin. This theory usually involves Malar, the beast lord, god of the hunt and savage predation. Malar is the deity of predators, stalkers, and the thrill of the hunt. His divine portfolio includes being eaten by something with big teeth and claws. Creating a creature that perfectly embodies savage predation and territorial violence seems very on brand for Malar. According to this theory, Malar created the owlbear as a living prayer, a creature that exists purely to hunt, kill, and dominate its territory. The owlbear doesn't hunt for the sport or for survival. It hunts because hunting is what it is. This aligns with Malar's philosophy that predation is holy and that the strong have not just the right, but the obligation to prey upon the weak. Other scholars suggest different deities might have been involved. Sylvanus, god of wild nature, might have created owlbears to keep the wilderness truly wild and dangerous. Talos, god of storms and destruction, might have crafted them as living natural disasters. Sirik, god of lies and murder, might have created them because he thought it would be funny to watch adventurers die. The divine origin theory has less evidence than the wizard or fae theories, but it has one advantage. It explains why owlbears seem to appear everywhere across the plains. If a god created them, they could have seeded them throughout multiple worlds simultaneously. But here's the reality that most scholars eventually arrive at. There might not be a single origin for owlbears. It's entirely possible that multiple wizards, fae beings, and even gods independently created owlbear hybrids because it's such an obvious combination once you start thinking about magical creature creation. Bears are powerful. Owls are deadly efficient hunters. Combining them is Magic 101. It's the equivalent of mixing chocolate and peanut butter. Except instead of a delicious candy, you get a 9-foot-tall murder machine that can see in the dark and holds grudges. So the owlbear exists in the D&D multiverse as a convergent evolution of bad decisions. Different worlds might have different origin stories, but they all end up with the same result. Forests full of angry owlbears that view adventurers as crunchy protein snacks. If you've ever seen an owlbear and survived to tell about it, the first thing you notice is that it shouldn't work. The creature is a biological paradox that somehow functions perfectly. An adult owlbear stands 8 feet tall at the shoulder and weighs somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 pounds of muscle, bone, feathers, and pure malevolence. They possess a massive owl's head, complete with a hooked beak capable of shearing through armor and enormous eyes that provide exceptional night vision. The eyes are typically yellow or amber and reflect light like a cat's, meaning the last thing many adventurers see is 2 glowing orbs in the darkness, followed by rapid disassembly. The beak isn't just for show. It's a devastating weapon that can punch through chainmail and crack skulls. Owlbears have been observed using their beaks for everything from killing prey to intimidation displays to digging through frozen ground in winter. Their body is a bear's, thick, powerful, covered in a combination of shaggy fur and feathers. The fur is usually brown or gray-brown, while the feathers are typically darker, creating a mottled pattern that provides surprisingly effective camouflage in forest environments. The fusion of fur and feathers seems like it should create maintenance nightmares, but owlbears handle grooming the same way they handle everything, aggressively. They've been observed raking their claws through their fur feathers to remove parasites, using their beaks to preen, and rolling in dirt or snow to clean themselves. They have 4 powerful legs ending in claws that would make a grizzly jealous. Owlbear claws are retractable, more owl than bear in this respect, and can extend up to 6 inches. These claws are sharp enough to strip bark from trees, dig through rocky soil, and eviscerate pretty much anything that moves. Despite their size, owlbears are shockingly fast and agile. They can charge at speeds up to 40 feet per round. That's moving about 27 miles per hour for those keeping track at home. For context, the average human sprints at about 15 miles per hour. An owlbear can catch you. Remember this. Their senses is where the owl genetics really shine. Owlbears possess exceptional night vision, allowing them to hunt effectively in near total darkness. Acute hearing, capable of detecting small movements from hundreds of feet away. A decent sense of smell. It's a bear contribution. The ability to rotate their heads up to 270 degrees, making it nearly impossible to sneak up on one. The combination of these senses make owlbears horrifyingly effective ambush predators. They can hear you coming, see you in the dark, smell your fear, and track your movement without turning their bodies. By the time most adventurers realize an owlbear is present, the owlbear has known about them for several minutes and has been deciding whether they're worth the effort of killing. Owlbears are carnivorous, but carnivorous doesn't quite capture their dietary habits. Opportunistically omnivorous murder machines would be more accurate. Their primary diet consists of large game, deer, elk, wild boar, anything bear-sized or smaller. Humanoids. Yes, this includes adventurers, and no, they can't tell the difference between a level 1 commoner and a level 10 fighter until it's too late. Livestock. If an owlbear discovers a farm, that farm is about to have a very bad week. Other predators. Owlbears have been known to kill and eat wolves, bears, and even other owlbears. They're not picky eaters. If it moves and contains protein, an owlbear will eat it. If it doesn't move, but used to, an owlbear will still eat it. They've been observed consuming carrion when fresh meat isn't available, though they prefer live prey. Their hunting strategy is pretty straightforward. Detect prey using superior senses. Use natural camouflage and surprising stealth to get close. Charge at terrifying speed. Maul prey into submission with claws and beak. Eat. There's no ambush sophistication like a big cat might use. No pack tactics like wolves. Owlbears hunt the way a freight train might hunt, with overwhelming force and complete commitment. Once an owlbear decides your food, you're not going to confuse it, reason with it, or appeal to its better nature. You're going to run, fight, or die, often all three. Owlbears reach sexual maturity at about 3 years of age and can live for up to 30 years in the wild, though most die much earlier due to violence. Fighting other owlbears, attacking adventuring parties, territorial disputes, etc. Mating season occurs in late winter. This is simultaneously the most dangerous and most hilarious time to encounter owlbears in the wild, because owlbears are terrible at romance. The courtship process involves males bellowing loudly to attract females. Sounds like a bear roaring through an owl's throat and is absolutely nightmarish. Males fighting each other for mating rights. Violent, destructive, occasionally fatal. Males presenting food to females, often still alive prey because owlbears have no concept of thoughtfulness. Both parties circling each other and making aggressive displays until one decides the other is acceptable. After mating, the pair remains together. Owlbears mate for life and are devoted partners. Both parents participate in raising young, though the male provides protection while the female handles most of the direct care. Females lay 1 to 3 eggs in a den, usually a cave, hollow tree, or abandoned structure. The eggs have a 5-week incubation period before hatching. The hatchlings emerge covered in downy feathers with their eyes closed and completely helpless. Mother owlbears are ferociously protective, and the fathers are equally dedicated to defending their territory and young. A mated pair with young is considered one of the most dangerous encounters possible in the wilderness. More dangerous than most dragons because dragons can be reasoned with. Owlbear parents cannot. Their young are threatened by your existence, and your existence will therefore end. It's simple owlbear mathematics. Hatchlings stay with both parents for about 2 years, learning to hunt and develop the aggressive territorial instincts that will define their adult lives. By the time they're juveniles, they're already capable of killing humans. By the time they reach full size, they're ready to claim their own territories, find their own mates, and continue the cycle of violence. If you want to understand owlbear psychology, imagine the angriest person you've ever met. Now remove their ability to use words, give them 4-inch claws, and make them hungry all the time. That's an owlbear on a good day. Owlbears are intensely territorial. An adult owlbear claims a territory of roughly 10 to 20 square miles, and they defend it with murderous enthusiasm against anything that moves. The territory usually centers around a den site, and includes sufficient hunting ground to support the owlbear's considerable caloric needs. Boundaries are marked with claw marks on trees, scent marking, and the occasional corpse of something that didn't respect the property lines. When something enters an owlbear's territory, the owlbear goes through a decision tree. Is it bigger than me? Rare, but if yes, monitor from distance. Is it about my size? Possibly rival, prepare for violence. Is it smaller than me? Probably food, attack immediately. Notice that leave peacefully is not on this list. Owlbears don't believe in peace. You're either food, a threat, or you're leaving, preferably running. Here's where owlbears get interesting. They're smarter than they look, which makes them more dangerous than they should be. Owlbears have animal-level intelligence, but they're on the high end of that range, comparable to bears or large primates. This means they can remember individuals who have wronged them. Yes, owlbears hold grudges. Learn from experience. That particular den led to pain last time. Let's try a different approach. Use basic problem solving. How to get past a fence, how to dig under a palisade. Recognize patterns. Those two-legged things with pointy sticks are dangerous. What owlbears lack is impulse control and the ability to consider long-term consequences. They're smart enough to be creative in their violence, but not smart enough to consider whether violence is the best solution. There are documented cases of owlbears opening simple latches to get into barns, digging under fences after learning they can't go through them, returning to locations where they've found easy food before, ambushing travelers on specific paths repeatedly, working together briefly with other owlbears to take down large prey, though this is rare. The intelligence makes them unpredictable. A truly stupid monster will always attack the same way. An owlbear might change tactics if the first approach doesn't work. This makes them harder to defend against and nearly impossible to trap reliably. Owlbears are solitary creatures until they find a mate. Once paired, owlbears mate for life and remain together, hunting separately but sharing territory and raising young together. The bond between mated pairs is extraordinarily strong. If one dies, the survivor will not seek another mate and may become even more aggressive and dangerous in its grief. When two unpaired owlbears meet, or when a mated pair encounters a solitary owlbear, the interaction usually follows this pattern. Both owlbears notice each other. Both owlbears stand at full height and display aggressively. Both owlbears make loud vocalizations. Imagine a bear trying to hoot. One of 3 outcomes occurs. Both retreat to avoid a fight, which is rare. One submits and leaves, which is uncommon. They fight until one is dead or flees, which is most common. Owlbears do not form packs, herds, or social groups beyond mated pairs. They do not cooperate with other owlbears beyond their mate. They are the hermits of the monster world except in pairs, and those pairs will absolutely murder anyone they see near their territory or young. Owlbears are found throughout the temperate and cold regions of most D&D worlds. They prefer forested areas but are highly adaptable and have been encountered in temperate forests, the classic owlbear habitat. Dense woods provide cover for ambush hunting, plenty of prey, and natural den sites in caves or hollow trees. Owlbears in forests are at their most dangerous because they can approach prey almost silently despite their size. Mountains. High-altitude owlbears tend to be larger and more aggressive than their lowland cousins, possibly due to harsher environmental conditions requiring them to be more efficient killers. Mountain owlbears often den in caves and have adapted to climbing and navigating steep terrain with surprising agility. Tundra. Arctic owlbears develop thicker fur and slightly different coloration, more white and gray, for camouflage in the snow. They're some of the largest subspecies and have been observed hunting seals, caribou, and occasionally polar bears. Yes, owlbears will fight and eat polar bears. No, you should not feel safe because you're with a polar bear. Swamps. Swamp owlbears are leaner and more adapted to moving through water and mud. They're ambush specialists, often hiding in murky water with only their eyes visible before lunging at prey. They're also somehow even more aggressive than normal owlbears, possibly due to constant exposure to insects and parasites. Subterranean. Cave systems and the Underdark host owlbear populations that have adapted to underground life. These owlbears have enhanced hearing and reduced reliance on sight, though their night vision is still excellent. They're paler in coloration and sometimes smaller due to limited food sources. Owlbears can survive in diverse environments because they're not picky about food or shelter. As long as there's something to eat and somewhere to sleep, an owlbear can make it work. This adaptability is why they've spread so successfully despite being magically created rather than naturally evolved. Because owlbears are the result of magical experimentation, there's no reason to believe that only one type exists. Various wizards, fae, and divine powers have apparently looked at the original owlbear and thought, good start, but what if we made it worse? Some of the known variants include the following. Winter owlbear. Larger, white-furred subspecies adapted to Arctic environments. They're patient hunters who will wait hours in snowdrifts for prey to pass by. More aggressive than standard owlbears, if such a thing is possible. The greater owlbear. Just an absolutely massive owlbear, sometimes reaching 12 feet tall and weighing over 3,000 pounds. Found in areas with abundant food sources. They're the apex predators of their territories and have been known to hunt and kill bears, direwolves, and young dragons. Winterclaw owlbears. A variant found in the coldest regions capable of generating frost with their attacks. Their claws leave freezing wounds and their mere presence can drop the temperature in an area. They're believed to have connections to elemental ice or winter fae. The shadow owlbear. Owlbears that have been exposed to shadow magic or spent time in the Shadowfell. They can blend into shadows, making them even more terrifying ambush predators. Some can even teleport short distances through shadows, because regular owlbears weren't sneaky enough. The Feywild owlbear. Owlbears native to the Feywild tend to be more colorful, with iridescent feathers and an even more unpredictable temperament. They might be found in impossible colors, purple, blue, green, and display limited magical abilities like minor illusions or charm effects. They're still murderously aggressive, but now they're pretty while doing it. The owlbear skeleton. Because sometimes necromancers find owlbear remains and decide that death was too good for them. Undead owlbears retain all their physical capabilities but lose their need for sleep, food, or self-preservation. They're the worst parts of an owlbear with none of the limitations. Various wizards have tried to improve on the owlbear design. These include things such as the Griffin Owlbear hybrid. A few insane wizards tried crossing owlbears with griffins. The result can fly, which is the worst thing to happen to adventurers since the invention of the pit trap. These hybrids are rare because they're almost impossible to control and usually kill their creators. The Chimeric Owlbear. Some transmutation specialists have added additional animal features. Snake heads, scorpion tails, dragon's breath. These abominations rarely survive long because they're so unstable, but when they do, they represent the final proof that just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. If you find yourself in combat with an owlbear, you've made several mistakes. Let's discuss how to minimize the consequences. Owlbears fight with straightforward brutality. Their opening move is usually to charge at full speed, covering 40 feet and around. The charge often includes a roar hoot that serves both to intimidate and to terrify prey into freezing. Once in range, owlbears use their claws in a raking motion called the beak and claws attack. They slash with both sets of claws while simultaneously striking with their beak. The beak usually targets the head or throat, the claws go for the torso and limbs. If the owlbear successfully strikes with both claws in the same round, it will automatically grapple its target in a hug attack. This is every bit as terrifying as it sounds. The owlbear pulls the victim against its body while continuing to rake its claws and bite with its beak. Very few creatures survive an owlbear hug. Owlbears don't retreat. They don't take breaks. They attack until their target is dead, until they're dead, or until something forces them to disengage. They have no concept of tactical withdrawal. Owlbears will use terrain to their advantage. They'll attack from elevated positions, use water to slow prey, or drive victims towards dead ends. They're not strategic geniuses, but they understand basic environmental tactics. For those that care about the numbers, their armor class is decent natural armor from thick hide and feathers. Hit points substantially more than most creatures their challenge rating. Attack bonus, high enough that they'll hit most low-level to mid-level characters regularly. Damage output, capable of dropping a low-level character in a single round. Speed, fast enough to catch most humanoids. Saving throws, physically resilient but vulnerable to mental effects, though good luck getting close enough to cast charm spells. Their strengths include exceptional physical power, superior senses, speed and agility despite their size, natural armor, relentless aggression, and high hit points. Their weaknesses include that they are vulnerable to fire and their feathers burn easily. They have limited intelligence and can be tricked, though this requires creativity and luck. They have predictable attack patterns once engaged, no ranged attacks, and they are solitary, so they can't call for backup. How to survive an owlbear encounter? Prevention is the best option. Avoid their territories when possible. Learn to recognize owlbear sign, claw marks, droppings, remains of kills. Travel in groups. Owlbears are less likely to attack large parties. And make noise while traveling, as owlbears prefer ambush tactics. Evasion is a good option. Run immediately when spotted, before the owlbear commits to attack. Climb trees. Owlbears can climb, but they're heavy and slower going up. Cross water. Owlbears can swim, but don't like to. Use fire. They're afraid of large flames. Or split up. They can only chase one target. Combat should be the last resort. Attack from range whenever possible. Use fire-based attacks for maximum effectiveness. Target the eyes to reduce their sensory advantages. Don't let it grapple you. If hugged, you're probably dead. Focus all attacks on it. Split DPS is effective against their hit points. Prepare healing spells and potions before the engagement, because you're gonna need them. Negotiation, not actually an option. Owlbears cannot be reasoned with. They don't accept food as tribute, speaking won't help, neither will begging, so don't try. Despite being murderous abominations that shouldn't exist, owlbears have become culturally significant across many D&D worlds. Some noble houses use owlbear imagery in their coats of arms, usually to suggest fierce territorial defense and martial prowess. These houses typically have ancestral stories about defeating owlbears or controlling their territories. Gladiatorial games and monster fighting pits sometimes feature owlbears as the ultimate challenge. Betting on owlbear fights is popular, though the owlbears typically kill everyone involved, including spectators if they escape. Owlbear meat is technically edible, though tough and gamey. Some cultures consider it a delicacy specifically because it's so dangerous to obtain. Owlbear steaks supposedly taste like tough chicken with an aftertaste of venison, though this might just be what people tell themselves to justify the risk. Owlbear pelts are valuable. Combining fur and feathers into unique patterns, a full owlbear pelt can fetch hundreds of gold pieces, making them attractive targets for experienced hunters. The mortality rate among owlbear hunters is approximately yes. Owlbears also occupy a special place in adventurers' psychology. They're the low-level adventurer's nightmare, powerful enough to kill a starting party but common enough that encountering one is a real possibility. I survived an owlbear is a legitimate bragging right among low to mid-level adventurers. It's a rite of passage that separates the survivors from the statistics. Conversely, high-level adventurers tend to view owlbears with a mixture of nostalgia and dismissiveness. "Remember when owlbears were scary?" is a common refrain among veteran adventurers, usually right before something worse shows up. Owlbears represent both a warning and an inspiration to magical researchers. Warning: this is what happens when you don't think through the consequences of your experiments. You create something powerful, aggressive, and completely beyond your control that then breeds and spreads throughout the world. The owlbear is magical hubris made flesh and feathers. Inspiration, but on the other hand, it worked. The owlbear is a successful species. It thrives across multiple environments. It's adapted to countless ecosystems. Whatever wizard created the first owlbear might have made a monster, but they also proved that magical creature creation could produce viable, self-sustaining species. This dichotomy means magical colleges teach owlbears both as cautionary tales and as case studies in successful transmutation magic. Advanced courses in magical creature creation spend weeks analyzing owlbear biology to understand why the hybrid works when so many other magical combinations fail. Different faiths view owlbears differently. Followers of Malar are reverent of the owlbear. The owlbear is a perfect expression of the hunt and predation. Some Malarite druids seek to commune with owlbears or even transform into them. Followers of Sylvanus are accepting. Owlbears are part of the natural world now, regardless of their unnatural origins. They're creatures that need protection like any other species. Followers of Ilmater pity the owlbears. They see owlbears as victims of magical abuse, creatures that never ask to exist and are driven by instincts that they can't control. Followers of Mystra are concerned. Magical creation of new species represents potential abuse of the weave and could lead to greater disasters. Followers of Lathander ask, why do these exist? Who hurt you? Followers of the god of renewal and new beginnings find owlbears theologically confusing. 50 years after Gary Gygax and company introduced the owlbear to D&D, it remains one of the game's most iconic monsters. Why? Because it perfectly encapsulates what D&D is about. It's weird. D&D is weird. It's a game where you can mix anything with anything. Owlbears are weird in exactly the right way. Bizarre enough to be memorable, but not so strange that they break immersion. It's dangerous. D&D is about risk and reward. Owlbears represent legitimate danger without being insurmountable. They're the kind of threat that makes players think tactically. It's funny. Let's be honest, owlbears are objectively hilarious. They're bears mixed with owls. That is a ridiculous concept. The fact that D&D plays it completely straight, treating owlbears as serious threats, makes them even funnier. It's D&D. More than dragons, more than beholders, owlbears represent what makes D&D special. They're creatures that could only exist in a game where imagination trumps realism, where what if a bear and an owl had a baby is a valid starting point for world building. Here's what you'll need to remember about owlbears. They're powerful enough to kill you. They're fast enough to catch you. They're aggressive enough to want to kill you. They're common enough that you'll probably encounter one eventually. Owlbears are not dragons. They're not ancient evils. They're not demon princes or elder gods. They're just really, really dangerous animals that happen to be magically created hybrids that shouldn't exist. And that somehow makes them more terrifying than most apocalyptic threats. Because while you can prepare for a dragon or plan for a demon invasion, owlbears are just there. Waiting in forests, hunting in mountains, existing in caves. They're proof that in D&D you don't need world-ending stakes to create genuine terror. Sometimes all you need is 8 feet of feathers, fur, claws, and absolute dedication to violence. The owlbear isn't trying to destroy the world. It's not gathering power for some dark ritual. It's not plotting revenge or building an army. It's just hungry and territorial. And you are in its forest. Sweet dreams, adventurers, and remember, always check for owlbear sign before making camp. Thank you for joining Bigjuicyhog Gaming. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. If you survived listening to this, you're better prepared than most for your next encounter. If you didn't survive, well, you should have rolled higher initiative.